Hello guys, yugioh here with another video, and this is gonna be our third episode of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Academy. We did Quick Play in Forbidden Drop we did Hand Trap with Nibiru, and now I decided to do a trap, but one trap kinda isn't worth talking too much, I guess. And these are kinda iconic, and if you're a long time Yu-Gi-Oh player, you're gonna recognize these as the Solemn Brigade. And these cards have been around in the game for a long time, and they're still viable. You can see people citing Solemn Judgment, Solemn Warning, Solemn Strike all the time. Solemn Scolding, not so much. There's a new Solemn card in the new set called Solemn Report, which negates spells or traps and can be really good in the side decks as well. But let's talk only about these cards. So first of all, I'm gonna go over the cards one by one. Basically, these cards are famous for being super strong in negating what your opponent is trying to accomplish by paying life points. And life points in Yu-Gi-Oh! Sometimes matter, sometimes they don't matter. As long as you're not dead, they don't matter. One of the greatest thing about Solemn Judgment, this is the first trap we're going to talk about, is basically this is what we call an Omni Negate, but it's not really an Omni Negate because it doesn't really stop everything. If you read this card now, you're going to understand. When a monster or monsters would be summoned or a spell trap is activated, pay half of your life points, negate that summon or activation, and if you do, destroy this card. Well, monster being summoned, spell trap, what else is there? Well, this does not stop monster effects. So if your opponent has a monster on the field, before you can flip this card, they can still use your monster effect. What the coolest thing about this card is you can pay your half your life points. So this card is always live, which means you can always activate Solemn Judgment. Sometimes you're gonna be, if you're playing a deck like Dinomorphia, that kind of the whole gimmick of the deck is that you need to be on really low life points. Basically, you can activate it even if you have 50 life points. And then there's some weird rule where when you're halving your life points, you always go up. So if you're with 1 life point, you can still use Solemn Judgment and you're still going to be at 1 life point. So this was Summon, Spell Trap, pay half, negate it. This one is pay 2,000. So if you're at exactly 2,000, if you activate this, you just die. If you are lower than 2,000, you cannot activate this because paying life points is cost for this card. Yeah, has to mention for all the Solemns, paying the life points is cost. So no matter what happens with the trap, you have to pay the life points. So when a monsters would be summoned, or when a spell trap or card monster effect is activated that includes an effect that special summons a monster, pay 2,000, negate the summon, and destroy it. So only things that summon or special summon. And then Solemn Strike covers what these cards don't really cover, and this is monster effects. When a monster would be special summoned or a monster effect is activated, pay 1,500, so a little bit less than Solemn Warning, negate the summon or activation, and if you do, destroy that card. Another very important thing to remember from these cards, they negate activations. And Solemn Scolding, really not popular, but it's actually the most powerful one. Basically, what it does is this needs to be the only set card in your spell and trap zone. So if you're playing a trap deck, that really doesn't make sense because this can be your only set card. But this one reads, when a monster would be summoned or spell trap or monster effect is activated, pay 3000, negate the summon or activation. And if you do, destroy this card. So basically this card, you pay 3000. It has the effect of Solemn Judgment to negate a summon, negate a spell, negate a trap, and the effect of Solemn Strike to negate a monster effect. So yeah, this card is kind of these two in one, but it's at the steep price of this can be on your only set, and it costs 3000. So first of all, let's talk about counter traps, because all of these Solemn cards are counter traps. Counter traps in Yu-Gi-Oh are the highest speed effect. So nothing can respond to counter traps except counter traps. These are just the rules. If you're new to Yu-Gi-Oh, you're probably gonna be like, what? Like for example, if you have a card like Red Eyes, Dark Dragoon that says that you can discard a card to just negate and destroy a card, it cannot respond to any of these cards. So it's very, very important to remember this. Okay, so now that we know that these are the rules for counter traps, also these can be activated in the damage step. Because they're counter traps, they're the highest speed, and negating a summon or negating a card effect is going to be very important. So let's get into some situations and see how that plays out. Okay, so let's talk about what can you actually negate with these cards. When you normal summon Medius the Pure, for example, you can Solemn Judgment and negate that summon. This is very important to say. When you negate a summon, it's as if this card never hit the field. So if it had like some kind of on-field effect, it doesn't trigger. For example, Medius the Pure effect, when this is normal or special summoned, you can add or special summon Power Patron. The summon is negated, therefore this effect never activated. When they normal summon Medius and they choose to activate the effect, because you know when you're playing Yu-Gi-Oh, people say normal summon effect because this is an on summon effect, right? So if they use the effect to summon or add from deck, you can Solemn Strike it. If they normal summon Medius and don't use effect, you cannot Solemn Strike it because this only negates special summons or monster effects. If they normal summon Medius the Pure, even if they don't use the effect, you can Solemn Warning it. It says when a monster would be summoned, doesn't say the monster has to be special summoned. When a monster would be summoned, or when a spell trap card or monster effect is activated that includes an effect that special summons, you can use Solemn Warning. Okay, let's say they have Elf Note Lucina, which is what we call an inherent summon. Basically, if your middle column is open, just like the Kastira monsters or Cyber Dragon, without using any effects, you can just special summon this in the middle column. Well, this was a special summon. It didn't start a chain. Can you use these cards? Yes, because a monster would be summoned, you can Solemn Warning it. Yes, because when a monster would be special summoned, you can Solemn Strike it. And yes, same clause as Solemn Warning. A monster would be summoned, you can Judgment it, and this is negated and goes to the graveyard. Well, what about, let's say you have your board and you have these set, and then they use Nibiru, the primal being, to wipe out your board. Well, of course, you can use Solemn Strike because it says when a monster effect is activated, right? So that's 100% usable. Solemn Warning also can be used because Nibiru has an effect that special summons a monster, but Solemn Judgment cannot be used as Nibiru is using a monster effect that will summon the tokens but tribute first. Therefore, this is not something the Solemn Judgment can stop. This is very important to know. Solemn Judgment works just like Illusory Lagia. Basically, if you activate a card that is like a card effect that summons something, but it's not directly doing that, you cannot Solemn Judgment it. Like, for example, if you have Incredible Ecclesia the Virtuous, when you special summon this, you can Solemn Judgment it because it would summon itself, right? But the effect to tribute and summon from the deck, you cannot use Solemn Judgment, you can use these two. Hope that makes sense. Now, let's talk about some mechanics that happen when you're using these cards and you're negating summons. So let's say you're playing against the Power Patron deck, like with Shade, the Obscure, and the Vidolium Power Patron. Let's say your opponent has scaled a 1 and an 11, so they can Pendulum summon monsters from level 2 to 10, and they're saying I'm gonna Pendulum summon, and then they bring out like maybe from the extra deck, maybe from your hand. Like from the extra deck has to go to the extra monster zone from your hand. And then this is a special summon, right? And can I activate my Solemn cards in this situation? And what's gonna happen? Well, Pendulum Summon is a game mechanic, as other game mechanics. This includes like inherent special summoning, which means you can Solemn Warning, Solemn Strike, and Solemn Judgment. You can use all three for this interaction. What's gonna happen with the pendulums when their summon is negated? Well, they're all going to be sent to the graveyard. Usually pendulum monsters, when they're destroyed, bounced, tributed from the field, and so on and so forth, they go to the extra deck face up. But because their summon has been negated, they just never hit the field, and because they never hit the field, they immediately are sent to the graveyard with game mechanics. Okay, let's talk about the negating of cards and text that says you can only activate once. So let's say your opponent uses Mitsurugi Prayers in the draw phase to play around draw, and that would add a card, but it can also special a monster from hand of graveyard. So that means, well, it's a spell card first, so you can Solemn Judgment it. It's a card that would special summon, so you can Solemn Strike it. And it's a card that special summons, you can Solemn Warning it. So you can use all these three to negate Mitsurugi Prayers. But since you used a negation, the activation of this card is as if it never happened. And the card says you can only activate one Mitsurugi Prayers per turn. So if they have a second one, let's say you strike the one, they're gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna use Mitsurugi Prayers to get whatever it needs. Then they're gonna warning that. Again, the activation is negated and they can play a third one. And of course, you can judgment it, but if you don't judgment it, they get to resolve this. So cards that say you can only activate one Mitsurugi press per turn, when their activation is negated, they can use another one. But cards that say you can only use this effect once per turn, even if you negate their activations, they cannot use the same card again. Example of this is Ame no Habukiri no Mitsurugi, which reads, you can ritual summon this with Mitsurugi ritual monsters your opponent controls 800 attack. You can reveal this card in your hand, special summon one Mitsurugi monster from your deck, then tribute one monster you control. You can only use this effect once per duel. If this card is tributed, you can add Mitsurugi, whatever. So the effect that we're looking at is revealing from hand, and you can only use this once per duel. So if you activate Ame no Habukiri no Mitsurugi, which is an effect that special summons, you can warning it or you can strike it. And it's gonna be negated and it's gonna get destroyed. Solemn Judgment wouldn't work here as we described. This is an effect that summons, not when a monster would be summoned. So Solemn Judgment can't stop this. These two can. This will get negated and destroyed. And let's say our opponent does some combos, gets this back from the graveyard. They cannot activate this effect again because even though its activation got negated, the card says use. So you are not allowed to use this effect for the rest of the duel. Okay, so just wanna make sure we're on the same page and you know when Solemn Judgment can negate and these other cards. When you're performing some kind of link summon, this is a summon, you can judgment, strike, and warning. If you overlay for a rank like exceeds, you can use this because it's game mechanic. If you're synchro summoning, you can use all of these. If it's special summon, you can use this. If it's some kind of summon, you can use the other two. What happens if I summon a card like Red Eyes Dark Dragoon that says that it can be destroyed by card effects? Because it says negate the summon or activation, and if you do, destroy this card, right? Well, let's say they summon Dragoon and we're flipping one of these cards to negate the summon, right? Well, the summon is negated and this can be destroyed. Well, you have to remember the summon is negated means that this card never hit the field. It directly goes to the graveyard. It doesn't matter if the card says it's unaffected by trap cards, if the card says it's unaffected by all your opponent's monsters. If you negate the summon never happened, therefore any of the effects of the card don't apply. Now, let's say you're playing White Forest and you have the Bellstar, you pitch a card to summon it. Now, of course, you can use any of these to negate this effect because this is an inherited summon, right? Let's say you let your opponent get to this point. They have the Bellstar Vengeance and LZ Azumino of the White Forest. Basically, they use these two. To go into Chaos Angel, which is made with Dark and Light, and as LZ Azumino of the White Forest has an effect when it's used for Synchro Summon, they can search a Sinful Spoils card. Also, Chaos Angel on summon can target one card and banish it. Well, we can use all of these cards to negate the summon. So no matter what we have, if we activate a Solemn to stop the summon, what is going to happen? First of all, Chaos Angel won't banish anything because, as we said, this card has never summoned, so we cannot activate its effect. It's going to go to the graveyard. And also, because LZ actually wasn't sent to the graveyard for a synchro monster, a synchro material, the summon has to be successful for this to count as being a material for synchro summon. Therefore, LZ cannot trigger as well. Another thing to remember is now Chaos Angel is in the graveyard, but it never got summoned. Its summon got negated. You cannot use cards like Monster Reborn to special summon Chaos Angel from the grave now because it was not properly summoned. Think of it like sending a card from your extra deck directly to the grave. If it's not properly summoned, you're not allowed to special summon it. Even though these cards are really powerful, they're trap cards, and trap cards are a little bit slow, and you're gonna probably only see people side these cards in the side deck if they know they're going first, or if they're exclusively playing some kind of trap strategy like Dynamorphia or I don't know what else. Even Counter Fairy was a deck back in the day, but that's not the case anymore. There are various ways to make these cards better. There are cards that said that counter traps don't have to pay for life points for cost, so you can infinitely use these. But realistically speaking, you're gonna have one or two of these in your side deck, and you're gonna side them when you're going first, and you're gonna be like hoping that your board plus one of these cards on top is just gonna blow out your opponent. The cool thing about Solemn Judgment is that it can stop spells and traps. So if your opponent puts cards like Evenly Matched or Harpy's Feather Storm or Lightning Storm, you can always put this and protect your back row with this. Or if you're playing the new Solemn Report, it can do the same thing. But yeah, this is all I have prepared for this video, guys. Let me know if any interesting situations with Solemn cards happened in your recent games, if you want me to explain anything else. But otherwise, this will be it for this video. Thank you for watching. If you like this content, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.